Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into a really foundational text, the Dao De Jing by Lao Zi.
Right, and we're working from a version based on those amazing MAWANGDUI manuscripts.
Exactly. Now, you might know this text well, or maybe this is totally new for you. Either way, we're aiming to pull out the key ideas.
Yeah, the stuff that still resonates today. It's philosophical, psychological insights, even metaphysical ones.
Absolutely. Think of it as getting the core wisdom without, getting bogged down in purely academic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission really is just to unpack the big themes, the core messages, hopefully in a way that makes you think.
Makes sense. It's a text that keeps on giving.
So where do we start with something this, vast? The Tao itself, the way.
Yeah, that has to be the starting point. I mean, the very first chapter hits you with it.
It really does. The ways that can be walked are not the eternal way. The names that can be named are not the eternal name.
Right. It immediately sets up this idea that the ultimate reality, the Taos, is, ineffable, beyond our labels.
So the things we can name and talk about, those are like the manifestations, the mother of the myriad creatures, as it says.
Precisely. They come from the Tao, but they aren't the Tao in its entirety. The source itself is nameless.
It's a bit mind-bending, isn't it?
It is. Chapter 4 talks about it being like this empty vessel, bottomless almost, predating anything we might think of as God.
And chapter 25 adds that it's featureless, but somehow complete, existing before heaven and earth.
Yeah, it's described as silent, amorphous, just there, standing alone, unchanging, a sort of ultimate ground of being.
That image of stability is really striking. But then there's this other idea in chapter 11 about non-being, emptiness being useful.
Ah, yes. That's such a brilliant illustration. Think about a wheels hub.
Okay.
It's the empty space in the center that makes the wheel functional. Or a clay pot, the emptiness inside holds things. A room needs empty space to be lived in.
Got it. So the usefulness comes from the absence, the potential.
Yeah.
The Tao's non-being is its potential.
Exactly. It's the potential from which everything arises. Then chapter 40 flips things again. Reversal as its movement, weakness as its usage.
Okay, that sounds deliberately paradoxical. Weakness is usage.
It challenges our usual thinking, right? It suggests the Tao often works in ways that seem counterintuitive. Softness overcomes hardness.
Like water wearing away rock. Chapter 43 mentions that too, doesn't it? The softest thing overcoming the hardest.
That's the classic example. It's persistent, yielding, but ultimately powerful.
And chapter 41 talks about the way being hidden, nameless, but good at starting and finishing things.
Yeah, like this underlying unseen force that just works. It gets things done without making a fuss.
And chapter 42 gives that beautiful lineage, the way he gives birth to one to two, two to three, then all creatures.
It's a picture of cosmic unfolding, from unity to diversity.
A kind of natural law.
Yeah.
Chapter 34 describes it flowing everywhere, doing its work without claiming ownership.
Effortless action, really. And chapter 25 brings it back to us, pattern ourselves on earth, earth on heaven, heaven on the Tao.
Aligning ourselves with that ultimate reality.
Exactly. Which leads us neatly into the next big concept, Dao, or integrity.
Often translated as virtue or power,
Yeah.
right? But it feels like something more inherent.
Yeah, I think integrity captures it well. It's like the inherent quality or power something has when it's aligned with the Tao. Its authentic nature expressing itself.
Chapter 10 mentions mysterious integrity, giving birth without possessing, acting without presumption.
Rearing without controlling. It's a very natural, unforced kind of virtue.
Chapter 38 makes that interesting distinction, doesn't it? Superior versus inferior integrity.
It does. Superior integrity is just acting naturally from the Tao without trying to be virtuous. Inferior integrity is when you consciously strive for it and it becomes, less genuine.
Like trying too hard.
Exactly. It loses that spontaneous quality. Chapter 54 talks about cultivating this day within ourselves, then letting it ripple outwards.
From self to family, community, state, the whole world.
Right. It's an expanding influence rooted in inner alignment. And chapter 55 has that lovely image of full integrity being like a baby.
Untouched, harmonious, resilient.
Exactly. Not harmed by the world's dangers because it's just naturally aligned.
That's a powerful image. Okay, so another huge one, Wu Wei, non-action.
Ah, yes. And this one's often misunderstood.
It sounds like just doing nothing, being passive.
But it's not quite that. Chapter 2 says the sage dwells in affairs of non-action, carries out teachings without words, lets things arise without forcing them.
So it's more about how you act. or maybe when you don't act.
It's acting in accordance with the natural flow, not imposing your will unnecessarily, acting without manipulation or excessive force.
Acting but not presuming, completing work but not dwelling on it. That comes up a few times.
Yes, chapters 2 and 77. It's about effectiveness without attachment to the outcome or ego.
Chapter 3's advice on ruling sounds quite radical. Hollowing hearts, stuffing stomachs, weakening wills.
It sounds harsh, but the idea, I think, is to reduce artificial desires and complexities, letting people return to a simpler, more natural state. Less striving, less discontent.
Removing obstacles rather than imposing controls. Chapter 47 says you can achieve without acting.
And chapter 48 talks about daily decrease, lessening effort, lessening interference, until you reach Wu Wei, where nothing is left undone because you're aligned with how things naturally work.
That's a total reversal of how we usually think about getting things done.
It really is. You gain the world, chapter 57 says, through non-interference. Let things be.
But chapter 43 notes the advantages are rarely realized. It's hard for us, isn't it?
Very hard. Our instinct is often to intervene, to control, which ties into the next themes. Humility and simplicity.
Right. Chapter 3, again, don't exalt the worthy, don't value rare goods, don't show off desirable things. Why? To avoid stirring up trouble.
Exactly. To prevent envy, striving, and disorder. Keep things simple, keep people grounded.
Chapter 7 has that beautiful paradox. The sage withdraws, but comes forward, alienates himself, but is present, because he's not self-interested.
Precisely. By letting go of self, he paradoxically preserves the self. And chapter 8, the famous water analogy.
The highest good is like water. Benefits everything, stays low.
The ultimate image of humility and effectiveness.
Chapter 9 warns against extremes, doesn't it? Keeping the bow too taut, the sword too sharp, filling rooms with gold.
Yes, all leading to instability or ruin. Pride that comes with wealth and honor is a setup for a fall. Simplicity is safer, more enduring.
In chapter 11 again, with the usefulness of emptiness. The space, the void.
It keeps coming back to that. Value the intangible, the simple. Chapter 12 says focus on the belly, not the eye.
Inner substance over outer appearances or stimulation. Reject the superficial.
Yes. And the idea of the unhewn log appears repeatedly.
Chapters 15, 19, 28. It symbolizes the natural, unadulterated state.
Exactly. Before it's carved up by concepts and desires. Chapter 19 is pretty direct. Lessen selfishness, diminish desires. It even says abolish learning.
Whoa, abolish learning. That sounds extreme.
Well, probably not literally becoming ignorant, but perhaps shedding rigid doctrines, preconceived notions, the kind of cleverness that leads people astray from simplicity.
Ah, okay. More about unlearning complication. Chapter 20 contrasts the sage's quietness with the crowd's excitement.
A kind of detachment from the usual hustle and bustle, finding peace in simplicity.
And chapter 22 talks about holding on to unity like a shepherd, being okay with imperfection to be whole.
Yes, and chapter 29 explicitly warns against extremes, excess, extravagance. Chapter 39 links nobility with humility, being exalted with modesty.
It's a constant theme. Humility as the foundation.
And these ideas definitely flow into how the text views ruling and governance.
Right. Chapter 3 suggests the sage ruler keeps people without knowledge and desire, not to oppress them, but
maybe to prevent the kind of cleverness and ambition that disrupts social harmony. So the truly knowledgeable don't feel the need to scheme. It's subtle.
Chapter 17 praises the ruler people barely know exists. That's the ideal.
Seems so. Compared to rulers who are loved, feared, or despised, the best leadership is almost invisible, allowing things to run naturally.
Chapter 18 suggests that when things like humaneness and righteousness become big topics, it's because the original way has already been lost.
Exactly. They are reactions to a decline, not the original state. Chapter 57 brings it back to governing with uprightness, but gaining the world through non-interference.
Let it be. It even says the more laws and taboos, the poorer people become. The more clever devices, the more disorder.
It's a strong argument for minimal government, trusting the natural order. Chapter 58 has that interesting contrast. Lax government leads to honesty. Meddling government leads to lack.
And chapter 60's image. Ruling a big kingdom like cooking a small fish.
Gently. Don't overdo it. Don't interfere too much.
Chapter 66 says rivers and seas rule the valleys because they stay low. Again, humility and leadership.
Yes. And chapter 67 lists those 3 treasures for ruling. Compassion, frugality, and not daring to be ahead of others. Very unconventional leadership qualities.
Definitely not what you hear in most leadership seminars today.
No. And then there's the whole dimension of relativity and paradox, which is just woven throughout the text.
Oh, yeah. Chapter 2 starts right off. Beauty implies ugliness. Goodness implies badness. Being and non-being generate each other.
They're inseparable. One defines the other. Difficult and easy, long and short, high and low. Same principle, interdependent opposites.
Chapter 13 has that startling idea. Being favored is as disgraceful as being startled. Honor is an affliction like the body.
It really questions our attachment to status and even our physical existence, challenges our values.
And chapter 14 talks about looking but not seeing, listening but not hearing, to grasp a deeper unity.
Yeah, moving beyond the senses to perceive something more fundamental, this unified one. Chapter 41 pushes this further. The bright way seems dim, the forward way seems backward.
What seems obvious might be wrong. The true path might look like its opposite.
Exactly. Chapter 42, things are diminished by being increased, increased by being diminished, totally messes with linear logic.
And chapter 45, great perfection looks flawed, great fullness looks empty.
These aren't just clever wordplay. They're pointing to a deeper reality that defies simple, binary understanding.
Even chapter 56, one who knows does not speak, one who speaks does not know.
The limits of language when it comes to ultimate truths. And the final chapter echoes that. Sincere words aren't pretty, pretty words aren't sincere.
It constantly pushes you to look beyond the surface, which seems to require a certain inner knowing or self-mastery.
Absolutely essential. Chapter 3's hollowing hearts, stuffing stomachs is a metaphor for that inner focus, substance over stimulus.
Chapter 10, tend the soul, embrace unity. It's about inner cultivation.
And chapter 33 puts it so clearly. Knowing others is knowledge. Knowing yourself is enlightenment. Conquering others is power. Conquering yourself is strength.
The real work is internal.
Right. And contentment is called true wealth multiple times. Chapters 33, 44, 46. Finding sufficiency within.
Knowing when to stop is key to avoiding perils, says chapter 32. And chapter 71, knowing you don't know is the highest state.
A profound humility. Accepting limits.
Chapter 16 emphasizes stillness, attaining emptiness, maintaining quiet, observing the return.
That's how you connect with the way, understand the cycle, see things clearly, which brings us to the view on life and death.
Chapter 16 talks about returning to the root, stillness, renewal of fate, a
It's
cycle.
very much a cyclical view, not a linear endpoint. Chapter 5 has that stark image. Heaven and earth are impartial, treating creatures like straw dogs.
Meaning, indifferent, not sentimental.
Yes, part of a natural process without human-like favoritism or judgment. Nature just is.
Chapter 50 talks about entering life and death, and how clinging to life actually leads you to the land of death.
Suggesting that excessive attachment or fear makes you vulnerable. And chapter 76 contrasts the soft and supple living things with the hard and rigid dead ones.
Flexibility is life. Rigidity is death.
Metaphorically and perhaps literally. And chapter 75 hints that acting not for the sake of preserving life, but just living in accordance with the way is wiser than desperately clinging to existence.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this up, we've covered a lot. The nature of the Tao itself, this ineffable source.
Yeah, and integrity, aligning with that source. The wisdom of Wu Wei, non-action, or maybe better, effortless action.
The constant call for humility, simplicity, life in leadership.
And those mind-bending paradoxes, the relativity of things, challenging our fixed views.
The path of inner knowing, self-mastery, finding contentment within.
And finally, those reflections on life and death as natural cycles.
It really is a text that you can keep coming back to. It's not just a set of answers, is it? It's more like prompts for reflection.
Definitely. It asks you to look differently, to live differently, perhaps.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Thinking about Wu Wei, that idea of non-action or effortless action, where in your own life might you be trying too hard, forcing things? What might happen if you step back a bit, allowed things to unfold more naturally? What might you discover then?
That's a great question to sit with. If any of this resonated, definitely check out the text itself or look into it further. This has really only been a starting point.